So in my previous video, I introduced this video series. In video 2, I want to do 3 things. I want to frame the series so you know what lens to watch it through. I want to convince you that it's worth your time to watch and share. And I lastly want to give you a little more clarity on what future topics might entail. For those who don't know me, my name is Cameron, and I am currently working on my PhD in biomedical engineering. This series is something I'm not getting compensated for in any way, except I do feel a little bit of a dopamine boost when somebody finds something I say helpful. With that out of the way, onto the framing. This series is not really about politics, nor am I approaching the topics I'll be discussing from the perspective of a liberal, a conservative, Democrat, Republican, or any political affinity group. I'm coming to you and presenting this series simply as a human. I think most of us agree we live in a very polarized time and that this is a difficult moment for humanity. Just the past few years have shown us how quickly the number of complex global challenges are increasing. Things like COVID-19, inflation, supply chain breakdowns, natural disasters, rising international conflicts. Problems are popping up that will affect more and more of us as the world gets increasingly complex. In my opinion, what we don't pay attention to as much is how important cooperation and mutual understanding are when we're dealing with such tough problems. Regardless of what each of us might believe the biggest problems are or who or what we think caused them, we all have a shared fate, whether we realize it or not. And I think most of us just haven't realized it yet. Instead, our focus is mainly on fighting cultural wars, often tied to aspects of our identity or background. And don't get me wrong, I think that our individual identities and lived experiences matter, but my point is that overwhelming and incessant tribalism immobilizes us in the face of serious shared threats. It's like being at the zoo, watching a tiger on the loose, and instead of finding a way out together, you and your friends start playing tug of war right there in front of the tiger like lunch meat. That's basically how polarization distracts us from bigger dangers. So I'm framing this series around reorienting ourselves, reminding us of the serious collective threats that we face collectively based on what we all share in common as humans. My previous video explained that to tackle these problems, the first step is staying informed and engaged. So I've outlined a simple solutions pyramid to illustrate how we move forward. So obviously you can't solve a problem that you don't know exists or that you don't fully understand. And these are problems that are too big for anyone to solve alone. So information is our foundation. And once you are informed, you can share what you learn through empathetic and effective communication so that others can become informed on the issues as well. After that, we can put our minds together, we can organize, we can properly channel our collective energy, and only then do we stand a real chance at finding real solutions. But right now, most of us are stuck in a loop. We're stuck in this cycle that prevents progress towards solutions. This is the cycle of avoidance. First, we label important events too political. So people avoid them at work and social settings. We even avoid them with our own families because we think silence will keep the peace. And for most of us, peace is all we want. But in that silence, many people, and trust me, it is more than you would expect, remain uninformed. Second, the place where we do most of our political engagement is online echo chambers where algorithms reward outrage and fear, so people hear only what they agree with or what entertains them. All the while, we're growing more polarized and we're blaming the other side for perceived issues. Next, election time comes around, and after months of misleading campaigns, we end up voting based on incorrect or incomplete information, or we just vote on vibes, and important conversations on the key issues rarely take place because everything is too political to discuss. Then, once they get elected officials often answer to large donors or lobbyists, not ordinary people like you and me. But voters don't realize that their interests weren't truly represented until it is too late. And often they never realize it because they tuned out and don't understand the power of being able to make the rules and how that power is actually being used behind closed doors. It all seems so complex for a reason. Finally, people see the bad outcomes and think nothing ever changes anyway, so we lose more and more faith and trust in the system, we begin to check out and the cycle restarts with even more silence. We must break this cycle. To that end, I want to emphasize that silence is not neutral. It's a permission structure that allows this damaging pattern to continue. I'm not saying that we should all go march in the streets tomorrow. That'll probably come later. But for now, just getting informed and informing others is the least that we could and should be doing. I'm sure you've seen examples of people getting caught up in this cycle before, but if you haven't, I'll give you a quick personal example from this last week. So last week, my school sent out an email urging everyone to contact their representatives in Congress to help stop major NIH funding cuts. That funding is crucial for research institutions, but here's how the cycle shows up. Universities often hesitate to talk politics on a large scale due to institutional neutrality policies or for fear of controversy. Most people don't talk about political topics at work to retain an air of professionalism, but when unexpected policies begin to impact the institution, they send an email to everybody's inbox urging people to engage politically. We react late when earlier open discussion might have prepared us better, even if it wouldn't have changed the outcome of the election. In my opinion, there are usually two major hurdles keeping us from escaping the cycle. One, we are running low on empathy for each other because it's easier for us to empathize with people who we already feel like we relate to and think the same as, and it requires more effort for us to do the same for people that we see ourselves as different from. And number two, having our beliefs, morals, principles, or worldviews challenged is an uncomfortable feeling. And as humans, we stray away from activities that do those, but oftentimes that's what's required to acquire accurate, updated information. So this video's purpose isn't just to give you my opinion on things. It's a call to action, as every one of these videos will be. I'm making a request that you aim to get and stay informed. Use reputable sources or free AI tools that can quickly browse the web to gather multiple perspectives, even historical ones, and learn about current events that are happening. Second, I'm asking that you talk to people about important topics and help break this cycle. Share what you learn with family, friends, and coworkers, and practice empathetic listening and open-minded dialogue. And together, once we're informed and communicating with each other, it's easier to organize and create collective action. That's how we can actually solve problems, or at the very least, take steps forward. With that, for future topics, I'll be touching on wealth inequality, DEI, since it's such a huge topic in the news right now, media manipulation, the real meaning of democracy and why it's so fragile, things like that. And I'll be talking about how they all relate to what's happening in the news right now. None of these topics are meant to divide us further. They're things that I think actually impact everyone in one way or another. So as I continue to repeat, I think it is worth it for us to be discussing and getting informed about these issues together. That's it for me for now. If you made it this far, thank you. It means a lot. I appreciate you taking the time to watch, and I will see you in the next video.